everybody, welcome back, and welcome if you're new here. So this table came to me from my husband, who says I have too much furniture, but yeah, he brought this home one day. He saw a yard sale and he is so sweet. He brought me this and another item to redo. So you can see I had filled some holes and gave it a good scuff sanding and cleaning, and then I went ahead and primed it with a very thin coat. I think it's better to do thin coats rather than one heavy coat and just repeat as needed. Color in my head and I just needed to make it. It was not the orange that Country Chic has already. I wanted it to be a little more of a burnt color, so I started mixing my red and my yellow. So I just kind of dot them on a plate, I guess you could say, with my finger there, and I basically realized that I needed a lot of red and just a little bit of yellow, so I just kind of eyeballed it and made the color that I wanted. And I go ahead and mark it on a cup just in case I have to recreate this color. The yellow didn't need a mark because it didn't make it raise up hardly any. I just knew that I filled the center of my paint with that. I also added just a little bit of a dark brown that was nearby just to darken it up a little bit. I'm going to be going for an old world and chippy look. I'm going to be adding a lot of texture powder to get a peanut butter consistency for this base layer, and also putting some texture powder directly on top of this coat. So now I'm just applying this base all over the entire piece, and I like to try to keep it heavier in the corners and edges with my texture powder. I think that gives it a nice effect when I'm finished. Throw this in here when my brush was still dirty with the same color that I want to use for the stencil on the drawers. I went ahead and added that on both sides of my drawer. So I let my piece dry for around 12 hours, and then I'm going back over it with a color called Nightfall. I'm just applying this kind of light-handedly. That'll give me a little less work to do later when I'm trying to distress a little bit to get the red to come through. decided to cover the entire top and front of the drawers with a stencil. That's a tile stencil that I have. And I'm using another complementary color. This is an off-white color that's called Cheesecake. And I'm just applying it with a stencil brush. When I'm doing a stencil, I like to use the lid. I will shake the can and get enough paint in the lid and repeat when necessary. And that way I don't overload my brush. And then I also like to keep a piece of cardboard nearby and offload some of my paint on that as well. I am not going right next to the piece that I'm working on when I'm finished. I'm alternating. That way I give the piece time to dry before laying my stencil on top of it again. And periodically, I will go and respray my stencil with the stencil adhesive again. I think that just really helps with bleed through and getting a proper stencil. So now I'm just adding a little bit more color around the edges of the top and the drawers, and after looking at it, I end up deciding to do the legs as well. Not really using this brush for any particular reason. I already had it wet with this color and tried it, and it's working great. So It's the stencil brush again. I spend quite a lot of time cleaning brushes, so the less that I have to do that, the better. So I started out just dry brushing the legs. I wasn't completely committed to the idea yet of putting this color on them. But then I realized it did need to be a little bit darker to match the other outlines. So I ended up going back over it again. I am completely loving how this turned out. I got inspired to do this from a salt wash Union Jack piece that I saw on Instagram, and I saw the colors and they just looked gorgeous. This is a little bit different of a take on it, and obviously it's not the Union Jack, but I really like these colors together, and I want to reveal some more of that layer with the texture powder. So I'm just sanding away heavier at the edges, still continuing to lightly sand over the entire piece just to give it that fine sanding that it needs. So I'm also taking a kitchen knife and just adding some more chips to my piece by removing some of those texture powder areas with the red color. So this process is definitely a little bit tedious, but I'm just using my artistic discretion for how I want it to look and basically how long I'm going to spend doing this. So I'm happy with how it looks. I'm going to go ahead and seal it with a clear wax and then buff that. dressed it up a little bit more with some gold hardware that I feel complements the piece really well. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Please like and subscribe. Have an awesome week.